Mhm. Hello, it's Wednesday, and I feel like I haven't been on here forever because we skipped last week because I was at a conference, and so was Shred Media. So we're back today, Wednesday, and I have a very special guest, and I say very special for a lot of reasons, but I have Sandie Sado. Hi,
Hi, Raquel. I'm so happy to be here today.
yes. Now, Sandie, the reason why I say she's uh, like one of my special guests here is that her husband is actually a mentor friend of mine. And then we met through him, and then we're part of this, kind of inner circle call that we have done for a while. We haven't, I think it's going to revamp, right?
That's the word.
Okay.
Yes.
So then we've gotten to know each other, but we haven't actually met in person. Hello, Christina. But this is really special because Sandie, you're kind of like coming out in a sense that you don't do very many of these lives or podcasts. And I know that you have an incredible story to share. And it does have to do with perfectionism. And that's why this is a great topic because I can kind of relate.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm thrilled. So welcome.
Thank you. Such an honor. And of course, yes, we have a little history. You've also connected with my son Jordan and supported
Yes.
his music. Hello, Christina. And you also um, worked a little bit with Jason on
Yes, with
how to.
Rock Vision, with Jason's on
Yes.
here as
Hmm.
well. So it's like a
Yeah.
full family affair.
And now it's Sandy's turn. Now it's my
Yes, I
turn.
know that's what's so fantastic, right? It's like now you get to share your voice. And I mean, we'll just get right into it because we already talked about how 30 minutes is probably not enough
I say.
considering what the topic that we're discussing. So why don't you go ahead and just start sharing what you want to share? I mean, I know you did an article on LinkedIn just a few days ago, kind of
Yes,
exposing your
yes.
past a little bit. So yeah, please.
Well,
This
interestingly, I was thinking about this topic, and Dal put together perfectionism versus reality, and this just kind of came to me, and I'm going to do my best to articulate it because it sounded really good in the head. So let's see if I can really get that out. But I liken perfectionism to be, it's part of a coping mechanism. And behind that coping mechanism, there's a lot of pain. And so our minds develop ways of coping through life. And one of them for me, as for you, was dealing with perfectionism and just the pressures of living up to what we feel the expectations that others may have on us. But the truth is, we have a much harder expectation on ourselves. And so we utilize this thing. And I thought of it, it's likened to like a filter, or if you will, it's a belief system. We develop this belief that if we're perfect and if we live up to those expectations, that life will be better.
mm,
And so I liken to these belief systems like filters. And so it's as though if you're wearing, let's say, orange goggles and you perceive the world, you're going to have that orange hue. So, perfection, if we can just learn how to take off those perfection goggles, we can see the reality of what life really is like. And so that's pretty much what my article is about. And yes, I did think of you when I was writing it because I know a little bit about your story too. And I know that you struggled with perfectionism. And it's an ongoing lesson for all of us, I think so. Yeah.
yes. And you articulated it very well. So
Thank you.
I struggle with the same thing that what goes on in my head doesn't necessarily come out properly.
Yes,
So
totally.
why don't you share with us your struggles with perfection? Why? Because yours are different than mine. I mean, you were a competitive athlete.
Yes, yes. So my story goes back to when I was growing up as a competitive gymnast, and I was on the pre-Olympic level. I did it for many years, and I got super close to the Olympics and training with Bella and Marta Caroli, the famous Carolis. But through that, as you know, there's a lot of body consciousness with that. A lot of focus on how the body should be. And for a gymnast, our bodies are supposed to be these almost boyish like type bodies with
Yeah.
no shape, just kind of straight form. And as I started developing, as a young woman does, there was some body shaming that went on. I remember even a time when one of the coaches, she looked at me, she patted my thigh, and she was like, wow, you're filling out, aren't you? Now, for me, that was, I'm getting fat.
Yeah.
That was my how I translated that. And so through the time, I eventually developed this another coping mechanism, which is the eating disorder, and having a body dysmorphia, not being able to see myself the way I really am, but in the eyes of what I thought others saw me, which was not the gymnast
Mm-hmm.
perfect body. So for me, the eating disorder and OCD, that's another thing.
Yes.
Yep,
I
with
still struggle.
perfectionism. hmm So with that whole trying to live up to the first place gold medal or that Olympic idea of Sandie and trying to live up to that, yes, I developed a lot of ideas that I needed to be perfect in everything and every which way that I can be. So coping became an eating disorder. Coping became OCD tendencies. I went through periods where I couldn't be clean enough. Just these compulsive, obsessive compulsive type behaviors. But through the course of life and developing breast cancers, I've come to learn that well, the interesting thing is life, we need to kind of take a step back as to our past and the things that we downloaded and experienced in our past, and we cover up our pains with these things, these filters. It just, having the cancer gave me a minute to just kind of stop and reevaluate my life and rediscover Sandie. What is Sandie without all these filters? What is Sandie when she can see and perceive life without all of the orange hue? So that's a little bit of how I've dealt or dealt with perfectionism.
Now, I mean, obviously it had to be a process. I know for me it was a process. I have many people ask me, how did you kind of not be depressed anymore, right? Because my perfectionism caused, just great pain to the point where I was just clinically depressed. And, I talk about and have shared about how I try to take my life because I just felt like I wasn't perfect enough. And if I wasn't perfect enough and life wasn't perfect, then what's the point? But I have plenty of people asking me, well, then how are you in a place now where that doesn't affect you anymore? And I don't know. Like, honestly, it's all kind of a blur to me. It just somehow happened that I changed my mindset. So for you, was there like a clear path, or is it the same thing where you just kind of went on with your life and at some
No,
point, like it wasn't as bad? I don't know. I'm curious.
no, that's interesting because I want to say perfectionism is one of those things that, again, it's part of the mind. It just downloads from time before when we're young children and it becomes part of our behavior, kind of
Mhm.
like the character of a personality. And so for me, it's interesting. I'll catch myself. I mean, even this morning, I heard in the background the lawnmower people come in and do. I'm like, no, 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 no! It's going to ruin our video. It's not going to be perfect. So no, I think dealing with perfectionism is just an ongoing thing because our brains are wired from our past. And so we have to learn how to unwire, rewire those core programs. And one of my programs was perfectionism, being perfect all the time. There was definitely times in my life where I didn't want to leave the house with my earrings or my lipstick or certain ways. So no, I think that perfectionism, quite honestly, is an ongoing thing. And the time that I most discovered these little filters and really started doing the soul searching is as I said, when I faced the cancer and when I was dealt with life, mortality. And when I came to that point, when I was told, you have cancer, um, and dealing with all the treatments, I really had to step away and ask myself, what is the purpose of life? You know?
And how
And I
old
just,
were you, Sandy, just really quickly, when you first got diagnosed?
it was in the 40s. I think I was 42, 43, something like that. Yeah, and that was the first one. Then I got it again a few years later. But I remember taking a walk, and it was just almost like this epiphany. And I thought to myself, I've spent so many years with my head in the sand. And I thought, if I have to live another day of life, if God is giving me another day of life, which He has, I'm going to start living. And that was the first part or first moment of my life where I just said, you know what? It's time to live. And it's time to face all of these pains and the sufferings from the past, because that's all it is. Our perfectionism is just a cover up, a coping from a lot of pain, and usually from our families and our childhoods. So to answer your question, long story short, no, Raquel, I haven't mastered getting rid of perfectionism. It is an ongoing thing, and I catch myself daily, like, no, 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 rewire,
Yeah, no, it
redirect.
definitely is. It's still it's a process, right? And just really quickly, we'll say hi to everyone that's popping in, everyone slowly coming in, and of course, we've got your hubby that just came on, and Suha and everyone. So welcome.
Hi.
Um, yeah, no, it's definitely, even before we hopped on, the fact that I have my hair up in a bun. I don't really have any makeup on because my vacuum cleaner broke and there was like all this hair stuck in it. And I'm literally like trying to figure it out. It's broken. So I'm really upset because I'm a clean freak and I
Yes.
had a vacuum. So I was freaking out and then I want to go to the gym later. So I was like, you know what? It's okay. We're talking about perfection versus reality. This is a reality, is that, you know what? I was having one of those days, and it doesn't mean that when I show up that I'm unprofessional or that it's disrespectful, right? Because I think a lot of times it's my way of being like, oh, I don't want to be disrespectful to my guests by not looking my best or by not showing up my best. Like, then that narrative gets into my head too. Am I going to disappoint others? Because that's part of the perfectionism too, is that we want to make sure that we also are being perfect for everybody else. It's not just for
Ah,
us, it's for others. And so it's that
100%.
that's I didn't want to disappoint you, Sandie. Like, this is
Oh my
cool for you to be on here. And but once again, it's perfect for this topic.
No, 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 no. And what's so amazing is I'm learning that the perfection, we are perfect. Each and every one of us, upon birth, that is the most perfect that we've ever been. It was before all the noise in the head got to us, before all of that stuff where we can hear that little voice, oh, you don't look good enough, or oh, you're not wearing the right lipstick, or whatever those voices are. It's like going back to our childhood. I mean, I don't know if you've ever really paid attention to a toddler. How present and pure are they?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I watch my granddaughter, and yes, I have a granddaughter.
She's precious. She's
Oh, she's
adorable.
everything. Oh, she's everything. But it's so interesting. I learned so much from her. We'll take it a walk, and she'll just be walking around, and all of a sudden she'll pick up a bug and just be like, oh, a bug. And she'll pick it up and start twirling in her hands. And then 2 seconds later, she'll look up and be like, tree, tree. And I'm like, wow, what is it to have all those filters gone, all those poor programmed wiring going on in the head, the silence of the mind, and just be present like a child? I mean, that's where perfection is. I mean, we are born perfect. But, life will have it. Life works through us. We experience life and we learn from these things. So, what's the end of the day? The end of the day is, how can we learn from all of our poor programming? How can we learn from all the wirings? And yes, there is no mistakes. Everything is perfect and as it should be, right? Thank you, Suha. I
I
appreciated
know.
that.
I love
So,
that. And then Jason said something really profound too, where he said the search for perfection is the search for protection from yourself, which is
ooh, that's good.
true. I know. Jason always has like the most incredible
Understand yourself.
insights. Like, it's insane. But I know Julian wanted you to share Crude's comment. I don't know who that is.
Yes.
Yeah, share it.
So yes, Julian, yeah, he knows. So we watch a lot of cartoons with our granddaughter, and one of the cartoons that I learned from, kind of hit home, was from Cruise. If anybody has ever seen
I've
Cruise,
heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
yeah, it's actually really good. The first one's my favorite. And so there's a scene, because this teenager, she's going through this rebelliousness, or it's viewed as a rebellion. And the father is always trying to protect the family and keep them in the cave and protect, as Jason was saying, just keep them in the cave and protect them from life, because life is dangerous as a cave person, right? There's all these elements and everything that can get you. So his job is to protect, and he wants to put him in this cave. And interestingly, she's rebellious, and she's just like, there's a part of her that just wants to spread her wings and fly and just experience life. And one of the interactions when she steps out of her, sneaks out of the house, the cave, if you will, and gets caught is she has this interaction with her dad, and, he's scolding her. And she said, you're not living, you're just not dying. And wow, that was a powerful, powerful statement for me. You're not dying. What is it? You're not living. You're just not dying. And it just hit me very deeply, because as I go back to those moments with the cancer and battling with cancer, I realized that there's a difference between going through the motions of life and really experiencing and living life. And part of experiencing and living life is facing your past. Mm-hmm. Facing all of those traumas, all of those things that we went through, and even facing ourselves and the parts of ourselves that we don't really want to face, and dredging up all of that. And so, yeah, that's one of my favorite lines, because I can relate to that. I remember the day when I said, you know what, if I have to live another day, I'm going to live. I'm not going to just go through the motions of life or spend my days just not dying. So that's what my favorite line is. And so thank you, Julianne. Yes. Love it. Go watch it. It's such a good little cartoon.
I mean, I learn a lot. Start watching it. But that you're just talking right now, there was something that it was 2 days ago. I had this thought in my head, and I had never really shared it. And I was going to maybe do a post about it, but you know what, I'm going to ask you about this, because someone like myself, who's always tried to achieve perfection, and obviously that doesn't exist, but there are those moments, and I'm sure everyone's had these moments, and I'm just curious what you do in them, is when everything just aligns. Like, I was in the car and I had my windows down. It was a beautiful day. I had just been at the gym. I'd showered, like no makeup on, ball cap. I was going to go meet someone for happy hour. And I don't know what it was, but in that moment, I was just really happy. And I just felt really content and fulfilled. And I realized that in that moment, feeling that, I almost wanted to jump to another emotion, because being happy, there's something like, you can't be happy and what's wrong with you? Like, something bad's going to happen. And I automatically start trying to rush away from that feeling. And in that moment, I was like, no, Raquel, there's nothing wrong. We're having everything aligned in a place where you really feel like this is like a great moment to be had. And so I now purposely try to sit with those emotions in that moment and be okay with it, because I think so many of us are not okay in that moment, and I don't know why. And so I want to ask you, do you cherish them enough?
Oh my gosh, that's really, really great. And I know Julian could talk about this on neuroscience, but interestingly, they find that, or science is proving that our thoughts, we're actually addicted to our thoughts, and that most of them, and I don't know the percentages, but most of them are negative thoughts. Yeah. And again, it goes back to all the programming, and I say poor programming, that we've had since the beginning of time, right? So in those moments, yes, it's almost uncomfortable to have that, wait, this is peace, this is rejoiceful, this is gratitude, that is what we should be cherishing and holding on to. So yes, I've had those moments where I'll be filled with gratitude and joy. And I can remember one time, it's interesting, I was actually hugging Julian, and in that moment, I was just feeling love. And then right away, I had this voice that was just like, oh, why does he love you? Why are you even worthy for his love? Literally, and it's almost like this little virus that wants to come and sabotage. It's like a self-sabotaging voice, the good one and then the bad one. And there's definitely those that are self-sabotaging. We are so hard on ourselves. But no, I think in those moments, I just try to be present and just give thanks. Mm-hmm. And however long they last, I cherish it. And if that other voice comes in, you know what? That's fine. I don't judge it. I just try to really hold on to those quiet, those beautiful moments that you just described. Because, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
No,
life
but
is
you're
about.
right. It's like self-sabotaging. And
Yeah,
that's where I caught myself too. Cause once again, I was like, Raquel, why are you sabotaging this moment of happiness and gratitude?
yeah,
And then
yeah.
thinking about like, it's okay for us to have that. Doesn't mean that we're being selfish or that, I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just, I just had that feeling the other day. It was interesting.
No, that's a very interesting one. I think part of perfectionism is, and I think we've had this on the inner circle call. It's like we have a bat and it says Sandie or it says Raquel. And when we feel that we're not stepping up to whatever standards we have in ourselves, we like to beat ourselves up and beat ourselves up. That's part of the perfectionism of us, right? It's like having to be perfect. And sometimes I just have to tell myself, don't judge yourself. Just put that bat, put it down, take a break. It's okay. So it's okay that those self-sabotaging voices come in. It's okay. It happens. It's part of the mind. It's just doing what it does. Just like the heart pumps its for every beat to breathe, the mind is just doing what it does. But yeah, it's interesting how our mind can sabotage us sometimes, work against us, doesn't it? Sometimes.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, all the time.
Yeah.
But like
More
you
than
said,
we like to admit.
inspiring, right? So it's at least like, and now I'm proud of myself to have that self awareness where before I just would self sabotage, move forward, and wouldn't even think about it. But the fact that I like in that moment realize what I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, well, that at least is a good start, a good step towards it. And then when I sit in that moment and it feels really good, it's okay that I'm feeling really good. That's another thing too. Yeah, and see, Julian, we are conditioned to feel the same emotions and we look for them. It's so
Yep.
true. It's like you said, you get kind of addicted to certain thoughts and certain feelings. And even 2 years ago, I did a 31-day challenge where I no alcohol, yoga every day. I
Mm.
practiced yoga every day and clean eating. And I didn't realize how I actually was turning to alcohol to numb my feelings. Like I thought like, oh, I'm just a social drinker. I like to have a glass of wine at home just to kind of relax. And I realized that when I was like in my feelings, I wanted something to drink so badly. And that's when that's in that moment of the reality of like, ooh, Raquel, you do like to numb your feelings and
Yeah.
mask them. And so that was like a big one for me too.
Yeah, I think that's like escapism, right? We find our ways of escaping, and one of it could be, just being obsessive compulsive about certain things. One
Yeah.
could be people go to alcohol and drugs and things of that nature. So I think to silence the mind, sometimes we look for those escapes. Some people spend a lot of time on television, social media. There's so many ways that we look to quiet the mind or escape, the pain that we feel or the thoughts that we're thinking. So it's normal, Raquel. We're all in this thing called life and we're all
I
sharing
know.
these experiences. There's no shame about it. There's nothing wrong with us. It's just the human experience, right? It's just learning from all of this and just growing from it, really.
And
That's what it's
talking
about.
about it, right? And
And
that's
doing
the
that.
thing is sharing. The more we share our stories and the more we share our experiences with it, we can all realize that we're all this, at the core of it, we're all the same. We're all
We're
trying to feel validated, worthy, loved, all those basic emotions. And so I love having these conversations because then maybe someone that's listening in who feels for whatever reason that they have to achieve perfection and that they can't look a certain way and they can't show up looking like this with a bun, maybe we're giving them permission to be okay with it. And I think that's the only way that we're going to change the way society views what it means to be perfect or how to show up. I mean, it's definitely going to be a long journey for I think the world to get to that place, but
yeah.
at least I have hope and faith. Like I try to not live life as a cynic or as a jaded human being. I like to believe that what, like we're gonna be okay.
Well, and it takes what, one person at a time, right? To make a difference. What is Michael Jackson's famous song? Look at the mirror. Just
Oh, the man in the mirror.
yes. I mean, it just
Yeah.
taking, yeah, just looking in the mirror and just working on ourselves is one step, making a difference as a whole. And we're all one. We're all these humans living and coexisting together. So absolutely. What is he saying? Hero's journey.
You know what, Julie and I started reading A Hero's Journey. I haven't finished. I'm really bad about completing books, but I did order it and I did start reading it. It's funny, Julian, I have a lot of books that I've started because of him.
Yes, he's a big reader. He loves,
Julian, I don't know when you hopped in, but I did mention that you were a mentor of mine. And, I think that's the thing too, Sandie, is you have a live-in, NLP, neuroscience practitioner in there, but it goes to show you that even having someone, I know Julian and I have had discussions where he himself has his insecurities too, just because, he knows how to rewire and reprogram and all the steps doesn't mean that it necessarily, is an easy process.
And that's the thing. There's no such thing as an easy process, right? I mean, we're all going through this journey, and it takes self-realization. And I think the hardest thing is self-realization. We're real good about seeing it in others. Whether we see good in others, whether we see bad in others, whether we're judging, whether we're loving, we can see it in others, but it's really hard to look at ourselves, And I think that's the beginning of healing, is just being able to self-reflect and, like you were describing, observe the self. And so, it's fun having these conversations with Julian. We can go, we have our coffee talk on the weekends, and we just go in all sorts of different directions about these topics, because it's a passion of his, it's a passion of mine. The full body, mind, and soul healing of the body is a big passion. So Rock, you're a whole human.
But I'll tell you this, Sandie, like obviously, like I mentioned, you and I have never met in person, but you have this energy and you have this calmness, and just even on those Tuesday morning calls and when you speak, like I love, because in the beginning, I'll call you out in the sense that you were behind the scenes, you weren't on the calls. And then I remember Julian said, is it okay if my wife gets on the calls? And you were still kind of hesitant to get on the camera, all of those things, right? And just to even see your journey and to now be here speaking with me live, I love seeing that, because you really are incredible. And I don't know why I get emotional with you, and I get emotional when it's like with the Sados. There's something about it. But just for people to even know what you've experienced, being that you were, a gymnast and all the struggles, and I'm sure just even with the eating disorders and all of that, I mean, that in itself, and then to be diagnosed with breast cancer, not only once, but to survive it twice. And I think that's where it's like, mind blowing just to see you, and just because there's so many people that play the victim and are, victimized by it, and woe is me, and life sucks. And, even Michael Ray, who's on here, he's had a lot of tragedy in his life too, and everything. But here we're still trying to be positive and trying to, just help others and encourage others and support one another. And so that just goes to show that as humans, we can go through and experience a lot of crap and still be resilient and okay.
Yes. I think at the end of the day, that's the story, right? That's the story of each one of us.
Yeah.
Through this journey and learning and growing. And just so you know, we're like kindred spirits, right? Like I just feel I reciprocate that. You play a big role in my life in many, many ways, as Julian knows. So and I appreciate and value you and all of your talents. But yes, in the beginning, speaking was really, really hard for me. I even had to take like an acting class to kind of work through this, because it's about vulnerability, and that little perfectionism, wanted to make sure she said the right thing, she was very uptight, wanted to make sure she looked the right way and the lighting was okay, and all this in a box thing. And I just had to learn to just like, whatever, let it go. But I took an acting class. I learned a lot of Brene Brown's vulnerability and what courage really was. And it's just part of the journey and using the voice. That was something that I just didn't enjoy doing. Sandie is definitely not a victim. I miss our morning call. I know.
Julian, get on that.
No, I'm just seeing
so many people on this stream be like, we want to be a part of it.
I know. It's just, those are wonderful times, those inner circles, because we had those great conversations, didn't we? Where we just got real. And that's where I learned a lot about you. I mean,
Yeah.
I knew of you, but hearing your story was so humbling. Because to your point, we have a trauma, we have those pasts, those very painful pasts. And sharing it with one another is the only way to really grow, right? We
Mhm.
learn from other people and from one another, and most especially we realize we're all the same. We're all flesh and blood,
No,
right?
see, that's the thing. At the end of the day, like you realize that we all have the same kind of wants and needs, really.
100%, a
You
hundred percent.
I know it's insane, but we're already at the 30-minute mark. I tell you, it happened so quickly, but I love it because Dal just said she's petitioning to have a show with you, myself, and Suha. And I'm all for that, Suha, if you want to do that. Because I
Yay!
think we just mentioned that we're all about repeat offenders on here. I don't mind having repeat guests, but yeah, we'll have to do something, the three of us
Um,
together and
I would love that. I would love that.
yeah.
And I'm so thankful. Thank you for inviting me to this. What an honor. I appreciate you so much.
Course. No, I'm glad that I get to be like a part of your, outing and having people really know who Sandie is. Like this is the past because this is only I feel like this is just the beginning. When people hear your story and how just you are so eloquent, like you and Julie, when you both speak about, it just gives me the chills. Like it
Oh,
really.
you're so kind. You're very kind. I
So I'm
appreciate
glad that people are getting to know you and yeah, this is just like I said, just the beginning.
it. I love
Yes,
it.
and thank you for everyone that popped in and for those if you're, gonna catch the replay. But I mean, what can I say? Now I'm having one of those moments and I'm gonna sit in that moment
Okay.
here with you at the end of it.
Oh, I love it. Well, I'm filled with gratitude, so I share the moment with you. So this has been wonderful. And I love
Thank
you dearly, Raquel. Thank
I love
you.
you too. And thank you everyone. We'll see you next week.